Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the new film, Michael, which is this incredibly rich, cinematic exploration of a legendary pop icon. Look, going into this, you'd probably expect your standard paint-by-numbers music biography, right? A linear story stitched together with some tired, behind-the-scenes recording montages. But what we actually get here is a complete subversion of the genre. The director doesn't just, recount history. They literally weaponize the cinematography and the audio textures to make you physically feel it. It's a highly unique, deeply sensory style of filmmaking. On the surface, sure, it's a seamless, danceable film with flawless beats, but beneath all that, it brilliantly manipulates light, sound, and movement to completely pull us into the artist's psyche.
And that brings us to the core philosophical conflict driving the whole narrative. When does protecting your family turn into trapping your own soul? Because guys, this isn't just a movie about getting rich or making catchy pop music. Fundamentally, it's a heartbreaking story of a son fighting his own father for creative freedom. It's an exploration of an artist desperately struggling to ensure his soul doesn't end up locked inside the exact same cage his father built for him, all under the guise of love and protection.
All right, let's get right into Section 1, the cinematic cage.
So the early Jackson 5 era is visually engineered to feel absolutely suffocating. Think about the performances of those early tracks, like I'll Be There or Who's Lovin' You. The director portrays these as incredibly strict, endlessly rehearsed studio or TV moments, performed entirely under the father's watchful, totally unyielding eye. And to make you feel that isolation, the camera work is just incredibly rigid. It is completely locked down. Notice the harsh, directed lighting? It casts these oppressive shadows that physically mirror the father's dominance, completely stripping away any sense of depth or warmth. You, as the viewer, are just plunged into this claustrophobic space. You physically feel the restriction. Basically, you are in the cage with him.
Now, as you'll see, the visual pacing of the film actually maps directly to his fight for independence, and it creates this profound cinematic contrast. During his youth, we experience that static, claustrophobic framing. The camera literally refuses to let him breathe. But as our protagonist goes through his emotional journey, from this tightly managed child star to a solo artist, the cinematography completely transforms. Those static shots, they give way to sweeping, buttery smooth tracking shots. The muted, harsh tones are suddenly swapped out for an absolute explosion of vibrant colors. The visual language itself fundamentally changes, from a physical manifestation of being trapped to this joyous, massive declaration of artistic autonomy.
Moving right along to Section 2, visually breaking free.
The exact cinematic turning point happens during the performance of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. This is his first massive solo breakthrough. And suddenly, the camera just breaks free from those rigid, constrained setups we saw in his childhood. It becomes smooth, vibrant, and completely independent. It's actively dancing right alongside him. And honestly, it's a fantastic historical touch, too. The real-life music video for this track used groundbreaking chroma key green screen tech back in 1979 to create those mesmerizing floating backgrounds. The film honors that by recreating that specific experimental visual texture. It uses the historical reality of the cinematography to really underscore his sudden, explosive creative autonomy.
Okay, let's shift gears to Section 3, the sound of independence.
The film's sensory evolution relies just as heavily on its audio textures. Early on, the Jackson 5 relied on pretty standard, basic studio gear. But as Michael steps up to real independence, the film grounds his success in historical reality through the actual evolution of the instruments we hear and see. Little by little, those soundscapes expand. We start hearing the sharp twang of high-end Fender and Gibson guitars, then the crisp, completely unmistakable digital punch of the 1980s Yamaha DX7 synthesizer, and eventually, we get the legendary intimate warmth of the iconic Shure SM7 vocal microphone. This transition in instrument quality, it isn't just a budget upgrade. It's an auditory symbol of his self-made autonomy, perfectly reflecting his rise to becoming a global icon.
Which brings us to a really fascinating part. Section 4, the Charlie Chaplin parallel.
So the director intentionally shatters traditional biopic pacing here. Instead of relying on that predictable, linear storytelling we're all so used to, the film swaps it out for immersive world building. For Beat It, the narrative physically connects the music with a youth gang fight, and they use actual gang members instead of professional dancers. It highlights his universal, borderless charisma. Then with Thriller, he weaponizes his love for pop culture to inject pure horror movie essence right into his work. He isn't just making promotional videos anymore, he is creating fully packaged, Disney-like cinematic worlds. It completely disrupts the standard pacing and forces you to watch a totally new kind of story unfold.
This multi-talented approach draws a specific, brilliant parallel in the film to the legendary Charlie Chaplin. Much like Chaplin, Michael exercises absolute creative control to bypass the traditional industry machinery. He writes his own original stories, he acts in his own narratives, and he composes his own iconic scores. By adopting this exact methodology of film storytelling, he builds a fully packaged, completely self-contained artistic universe. And this allows him to share his deepest emotional moments directly with his fans, completely independent of the studio executives who, previously controlled his entire life.
And that leads us to our grand finale, Section 5, Live Energy and Liberation.
I want you to imagine standing in the front row of a packed, roaring stadium, literally feeling the bass rattle your chest. The film actively frames this climax through the eyes of a dedicated fan, witnessing his creative liberation in real time. The reason the audience is so deeply hypnotized isn't just because of the catchy beats, it's the raw, palpable reality that his soul is finally free. As a fan in that crowd, you are forging a profound emotional bond with the performer. You're watching a man who has definitively escaped his early cage, and the collective euphoria in that stadium is a direct response to his liberation.
To capture this massive shift, the director completely abandons those sterile, constrained studio soundscapes from his youth. The film's audio just explodes into a massive, echoing live performance soundscape. At the exact same time, the camera work goes completely frenetic. It's handheld, it's wide-sweeping, all to capture the intense, raw live atmosphere of the arena. The visual and sonic contrast from the beginning of the film is just staggering. It's so immersive and kinetic that it leaves you completely engulfed in the historical reality of the moment. You literally feel the undeniable triumphant energy of a musical titan in his prime.
The director translates this internal conflict directly into massive visual symbols during the performance of Bad. The staging is aggressive, right?